Hello, my name is Connor Watson, and today I will be doing my presentation on the psychology of injury. What is an injury? An injury occurs when there is damage done to the body that causes physical disability and restricts motor function. This is typically only temporary, but can be permanent. Acute discomfort or pain usually shows the presence of an injury. What mechanisms cause injuries? First, we're going to look at physical factors. And some physical factors that can lead to injuries are muscle imbalances, high speed collisions, overtraining, and physical fatigue. Now, all these factors that I just listed are the primary causes of exercise and sports injuries. And an importance is placed on physical preparation and reducing environmental factors, such as not practicing or playing in extreme temperatures, to help decrease the likelihood of sport and exercise related injuries. Next, we're going to look at social factors. A high value is placed on playing with pain and injury, as playing with pain and injury is a desirable characteristic, as is seen as a person possesses toughness and a desire to win. This used to be seen as a masculine trait to play through injuries, but has become more prevalent in female sports as well. Next, we're going to look at psychological factors. Psychological factors play a big role in injury rehabilitation as well as injury itself. Major psychological factors that lead to injury are burnout, pressure, stress, and anxiety. Stressful situations can contribute to injury based on how the athlete perceives a stressful situation. Now, a threatening situation creates anxiety for the athlete, which causes changes in muscle tension and focus, which leads to a greater likelihood of injury. Those who develop better psychological skills are more equipped to handle stress and reduce their chances of being injured. Next, we're going to look at personality factors. Now, three prevalent factors are self-concept, introversion versus extroversion, and tough-mindedness. Now, there's a lack of consistency when testing these factors and how they play a key role in injuries because each athlete is different as they are individuals. Optimism, self-esteem, hardiness, and trait anxiety also play a part in injuries. Stress levels. Stress causes attentional disruption and increased muscle tension, which leads to an increased risk of injury. Attentional disruption reduces peripheral attention and causes distractions, while increased muscle tension disrupts normal muscle coordination, therefore leading to the increased risk of injury. Athletes with high levels of stress are more likely to suffer injuries than those who possess low levels of stress. Stress can also come from both positive and negative events. Individuals are more likely to have suffered more athletic injuries if they have the following qualities: low self-esteem, they are pessimistic, and they have low hardiness. Studies have also found that athletes who partook in stress management had less injuries than athletes who didn't when participating in high-risk injury sports. Next, we're going to talk about psychological reactions to injury. Emotional stress. There are 5 stages of grief, and those stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and lastly, acceptance and recognition. Now, many athletes may exhibit these signs of grief, but they will not follow this set of rigid structure as they will oftentimes bounce back and forth between these different stages. Now, another outlook are the 3 general categories of responses. The first being injury relevant information processing, which is when an athlete focuses on the extent of the injury and the consequences of said injury. Next is emotional upheaval and reactive behavior, which is once an athlete realizes they are injured, they feel a variety of different emotions, such as shock and denial, and they may self-isolate themselves. Finally, we have positive outlook and coping, which is when an athlete accepts their injury, positively copes, and focuses on positively progressing. Next, we're going to talk about some additional types of reaction to injury. Some additional types of psychological reactions are identity loss, which is when an athlete loses a part of their identity, and this is seen significantly in those who define themselves through sports. Next is fear and anxiety, which is when athletes worry about recovery process and re-injuring and losing their spot in the lineup because they are unable to play due to their injury. Next, we have lack of confidence, which is when athletes lose confidence because they haven't played because of their injury, and it decreases their motivation. Next, we have performance decrements, which is due to their lack of confidence. Athletes may perform worse than they did pre-injury. And finally, we have group processes where injuries can impact team performance, such as like the cohesion of a team in basketball. If they're missing their primary shooter, that will mess with the shooting performance of that entire team. Next, we're going to talk about the handling of the rehabilitation process. Rehabilitation. So psychology of recovery, it's very important to have athletes set goals and positive self-talk, as it led to faster healing according to researchers' data. Self-motivation is a major psychological aspect of rehabilitation, such as routine. So as long as they stick to that, it'll help with the psychological aspect of the rehabilitation process. And then building rapport. It is important to possess empathy for the injured athlete. And you need to be positive and enforce a team recovery process so the athlete doesn't feel like they're alone and that they know you are there to support them. It's important to educate them. Educating the athlete on their injury will help them better understand the injury and improve the rehabilitation process. Another aspect of rehabilitation is coping and teaching the athlete how to cope with setbacks. Athletes need to know that setbacks are completely normal, and by properly coping with setbacks, it'll help athletes not get as discouraged with setbacks during their rehabilitation process. And finally, support. Maintain social support for the injured athlete throughout the entire rehabilitation process. Social support is most needed when rehab is slow, to keep an athlete's spirits high and to keep the athlete motivated. Now, rehab recommendations for athletes. It is very important to pay attention to your body and to not rush back from recovery, as it will just delay your process of fully recovering from your injury. It is important to come to terms with the situation, set goals, work on mental skill training along with physical training, use imagery and visualization during rehab, and to use social resources wisely, as this will all help your rehabilitation process. Rehab recommendations for coaches. It is very important for coaches to show empathy and support to their athletes. Understand that no athlete's rehabilitation process will be the same. Set realistic expectations and have patience with the athletes. This ties into the last idea, as you need to have different expectations for different athletes because of who they are and the significance of their injury. And don't continue to mention the injury during rehab, as this could potentially discourage the athlete from continuing the rehabilitation process. Then we have rehab recommendations for sports medicine personnel. It is important to educate and inform the athlete on their injury and the rehabilitation process so they know that what they're doing and they can know an end goal. Properly motivate and push the athlete. So don't be overly optimistic, because you don't want to set unrealistic goals for them, but continue to push and motivate them so that they can reach the goals that you guys have set. And finally, show the athlete empathy and support, as this is a difficult time for them, and it is important to know that they have support. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.